The vastness of space stretched endlessly around the alien flagship, its dark metal surface glowing under distant stars. Inside, everything moved with strict order. The Vurak Dominion was known for discipline, and their flagship was the perfect picture of their power. Soldiers marched in perfect formation through wide metallic halls. Their armor was thick, their steps heavy, and their eyes sharp. At the center of it all stood General Rathka, the highest authority in the Vurak military. Rathka was tall, even for his species, with a proud posture and a long ridge down his forehead. He believed deeply in numbers, in the power of large armies, and in the fear they brought to other species. When he walked, soldiers stepped aside and saluted without hesitation. His voice always carried confidence, and today was no different. He had called a meeting with his commanders, ready to discuss their new target, humanity. The Vurak Dominion had studied humans for months. Their scouts had observed human colonies, ships, and broadcasts. The Vurak expected fear when they arrived with overwhelming force. Most species surrendered before even attempting resistance. Rathka believed humans would do the same. He stood at the center of the command chamber, a room filled with holographic displays showing star maps and shifting numbers. The humans are a young species, he declared. They have small fleets, limited soldiers, and very little discipline. They rely on technology instead of structure. They are not prepared for us. His commanders nodded in agreement. Rathka activated a display showing rows and rows of Vurak soldiers. I command 1 million elite soldiers, he said with pride. No human captain will dare defy us when faced with these numbers. His voice echoed in the chamber, while the Vurak prepared their grand demonstration of power. Far away, the human ship Horizon's Wake drifted silently in neutral space. The ship was sleek and white, designed for exploration, but equipped for danger. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge, watching long streams of stars outside the viewing window. He was calm, focused, and quietly confident. Ward was not as tall or intimidating as the Vurak general, but he had something the aliens did not understand yet, a human mind that learned fast and thought even faster. Humans were unpredictable, creative, and stubborn. Ward had built his career on understanding enemies before they understood him. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara Quinn, approached with a data tablet. "Sir, the Vurak flagship is requesting a direct channel," she said. They insisted as urgent. Ward nodded. "Let's hear it." Moments later, the massive face of General Rathka appeared on the main screen. His presence filled the bridge, his eyes glowing with confidence and expectation. Behind him, rows of alien commanders stood at attention. "Human captain," Rathka began in a heavy voice, "you face the might of the Vurak Dominion. I, General Rathka, command 1 million trained soldiers. Their loyalty is absolute, their discipline unmatched. If your species chooses resistance, you will face all of them." The bridge fell silent. Mara glanced at Ward, expecting either concern or negotiation. Instead, Ward remained completely steady. His expression did not change. He did not even blink. He finally said one word, "Good." The Vurak general paused. His eyes narrowed slightly. This was not the reaction he expected. Most species responded with fear or anger. But this human stood calm, like he had just heard something helpful. "Good," Rathka repeated, confused. "You speak this word as if numbers do not frighten you." Ward simply replied, "Numbers? Tell me you're serious. Serious opponents make negotiations worth the effort." The general's confusion grew. He was used to forcing others into submission before negotiations even began. But this human captain showed no fear. "We will meet on neutral ground," Rathka finally said. "Ack! Prepare your ship." The screen closed, leaving the humans in a stunned silence. Mara spoke first. "Captain, I understand being calm, but you sounded almost happy about 1 million soldiers." Ward turned away from the screen, looking toward the stars again. "Because I am," he said quietly. Mara frowned. "Sir, we don't even have 1,000 people on this ship. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. "They do," Ward agreed. "But numbers can be predictable. 1 million soldiers means 1 million patterns. If we understand their structure, their training, their thinking, we can predict their actions before they take them. Mara blinked. So you're saying their strength can be used against them? Ward nodded. Humans don't rely on uniform thinking. We rely on adaptation. That is something the Vorak don't understand. While the crew prepared, the ship moved toward the chosen neutral meeting point, a quiet region filled with drifting ice clouds and blue gas formations. The light painted the ship in calm colors, but the crew felt the pressure building. Every officer knew the Vorak reputation. Many whispered fears quietly among themselves. The meeting space was an artificial platform built by ancient explorers long gone. Two ships arrived from opposite directions, the massive Vorak flagship and the smaller human vessel. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The alien ship looked like a floating fortress, while the human ship looked small in comparison. Ward stepped onto the platform accompanied by a small team, one diplomat, one engineer, and one tactical analyst. He chose only a few because humans believed in small, flexible teams. The Vorak believed in the opposite. General Rathka arrived with a formation of 50 armored soldiers. Their footsteps shook the platform slightly. They formed two straight lines, creating a path for their leader. Ward noticed their perfect discipline immediately. Every movement was precise. Every soldier looked identical in posture. Rathka looked down at Ward, towering over him. Your confidence continues to surprise me, human, he said. Most species tremble at the mention of my army. Ward answered in the same calm voice. Confidence comes from understanding. I don't fear what I understand. And what do you understand? The general asked. That your army is large? Yes. Impressive, yes, Ward said. But also predictable. Soldiers train the same way, make similar decisions. That gives us patterns to read. The general frowned. You speak boldly for someone so outnumbered. Ward smiled softly. Humans don't measure strength by numbers. We measure it by adaptability. Rathka turned and gestured to his soldiers. He stepped forward in perfect sync, demonstrating unity. You see discipline, you see order. These are the strengths of the Vorak Dominion. Ward watched the soldiers, then nodded. Yes, I see discipline. But I also see limits. The general's face tightened. Limits, uniform thinking, Ward explained. If one soldier hesitates, they all hesitate. If one reacts a certain way, they all react similarly. This makes you powerful, but also predictable. The Vorak soldiers exchanged confused glances. They were not used to hearing such analysis. Rathka folded his arms. You believe your small crew can outthink a million soldiers? Ward shrugged gently. Not outthink. Just think differently. The general studied him carefully. He did not understand humans, but he felt something unsettling. This captain was not bluffing. His calm confidence hid something deeper. They moved into the meeting chamber, a quiet circular room with hovering lights. The negotiations began. The Vorak tried to intimidate through authority, but Ward's responses were always steady, always thoughtful. He asked questions that made the generals pause. He answered in ways they did not expect. At one point, Rathka slammed his hand on the table. You speak as if humans have any advantage. Ward looked at him without flinching. We do. We learn quickly. That answer left a long silence. By the time the meeting ended, the Vorak general felt something he never felt before when facing a weaker species. Uncertainty. Ward had not threatened, raised his voice, or bragged, yet he seemed in control. As they prepared to leave, Rathka turned to him one last time. Why did you say good? He asked. Ward stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Because a million soldiers means you are committed. And when an enemy is committed, they cannot easily change direction. That gives humans an opportunity to understand them. Rathka stared at him now, more curious than angry. Ward continued. Humans grow stronger when the challenge grows. That is why your numbers do not frighten us. Then he walked away, leaving the generals standing in silence. The first meeting had ended. No battle, no threats, no fear. But something new had begun. Something that would reshape both sides. General Rathka returned to his ship unsettled. Captain Elias Ward turned to his ship calm and prepared, and in the quiet space between their two vessels. The real story had just begun. The meeting platform drifted quietly in the blue mist of The gas clouds, long after both sides had returned to their ships, but inside the human vessel, Horizon's wake, the atmosphere was far from quiet. The crew moved quickly through narrow halls, carrying tablets, tools, and reports. They had seen the Vorax numbers, they had seen their strict formation, and they had heard the general's confidence. Some were nervous, some were excited, and some were confused. But all of them waited for Captain Elias Ward to speak. Ward stood in the briefing room, hands behind his back, looking at a floating display showing the Vorak flagship. He studied every movement, every heat signature, every formation. He knew the Vorak believed in power through numbers. He knew they trusted uniformity. And he also knew that these traits made them easier to understand. Lieutenant Mara Quinn entered the room quietly. "The crew is ready for your update," she said. Her voice was calm, but the tension in her eyes was clear. Ward nodded. "Let's begin." They walked into the main assembly area where almost the entire crew was gathered. Many stood because the room could not seat everyone. Engineers with grease on their hands stood next to young analysts holding tablets. Medical officers stood near communications staff. They all waited for Ward. The captain stepped forward. "You all know what we face," Ward began. "A Vorak general with 1 million soldiers trained to follow orders instantly. A fleet designed to overwhelm anything in its way. A leader who believes numbers decide everything." Murmurs spread through the room. Some looked uneasy. Others straightened their backs, listening closely. Ward continued. "What he does not understand is that humans do not follow the same rules he does. We do not fight his way. We do not think his way. That is why I said good when he mentioned 1 million soldiers." A young technician raised his hand. "Sir, does their number really not bother you?" Ward smiled slightly. "It bothers me if we play their game, but we never play by Vorak rules. We play by ours." The crew relaxed a little. Ward always had a way of making impossible situations feel manageable. He tapped the display, revealing Vorak's strategic data. "The Vorak rely on pattern. Pattern gives us prediction. Prediction gives us control," Mara added. "We analyze their movements from the moment they entered this region. Every formation is perfect. Every squad responds exactly the same way. That means they are powerful, but not flexible." Ward took a breath, then spoke more softly. "Humans are strongest when the situation is unpredictable. That is why we survive. That is why we adapt. And that is why this challenge is not a threat, but an opportunity." The crew exchanged determined looks. The fear in their eyes softened. After the meeting, the Horizon's wake prepared for the next stage: strategic negotiations. These negotiations were not simple conversations. They were tests of logic, efficiency, cultural understanding, and decision-making. The Vorak believed they would easily dominate such tests. They assumed humans were disorganized thinkers, but humans had something that Vorak did not: diversity of thought. Ward chose 3 specialists for the negotiation team. First was Mira Halden, a cultural analyst who understood alien traditions better than anyone on board. Second was Theo Marone, a strategic mathematician with a talent for spotting patterns in seconds. Third was Rafi Wynn, an engineer who could break down any system into simple steps. Together, the 4 of them formed a uniquely human team. When the negotiation channel opened, Rathka appeared with 6 of his highest-ranking officers. Their faces held confidence. Their voices were low but firm. They were ready to crush the humans intellectually. The first challenge began. Resource allocation in a simulated conflict zone. The Vorak quickly arranged their assets into a strict, layered structure. They completed the task in seconds. Ward watched silently and nodded to Theo. Theo stepped forward and rearranged resources in a fluid structure that shifted depending on environmental changes. It looked chaotic at first glance, but when the simulation ran, the human formation adapted instantly to every change. The Vorak structure, perfect at the start, failed the moment conditions shifted. Rathka narrowed his eyes. "You adapted randomly," Theo smiled. "Not randomly, flexibly. The second test came: diplomatic reasoning. The Vorak argued from a position of strength, demanding control over a star system. Their logic was simple dominance through numbers. Ward let Mira handle this phase. She approached the conversation with soft, gentle reasoning, something completely foreign to the Vorak style. Instead of arguing against their logic, she asked questions about their history, their values, their traditions. The Vorak officers became confused. They were not used to explaining their culture. They were used to ordering others. Without attacking, Mira led them into a contradiction within their own argument. When they realized it, the officers fell silent. Ward observed Rathka closely. The general looked frustrated not because the humans were aggressive, but because they were unpredictable. The third test began: problem-solving under time limits. A simulated crisis was displayed to planets with limited resources needed help. The Vorak instantly divided their forces into equal portions and sent them in symmetrical directions. Ward gave the task to Rafi. Rafi looked at the map for a long second and redirected everything toward one planet. The Vorak officers reacted with disbelief. That planet will be rescued, Rafi explained. Then its people will help with the second. 2 problems solved with one stronger team. The simulation confirmed his idea worked better than the Vorak method. The Vorak delegation did not know how to respond. Their predictable plan had failed again. Rathka stared at Ward with growing irritation. How does your team succeed with such unstructured methods? Ward answered calmly. Because humans do not fear difficult choices. We adjust. We change. Predictability is your strength, but also your weakness. The Vorak officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had never faced a species like this. When the session ended, the Vorak leadership requested a break. Ward turned off the channel and looked at his team. You all did well, he said. Mira sat down with a tired sigh. They think like machines. Everything is straight, strict, obvious. They rely on certainty, Theo added. That's why our approach doesn't make sense to them. Rafi leaned back. It's like trying to explain jazz to a marching band. Ward chuckled gently. That's exactly why we have an advantage. They know everything within their structure. They know nothing outside it. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorak flagship, General Rathka paced through the command chamber. His officers followed him, their usual calm shaken. They do not follow the path, said one officer. They have no fixed rule system. Their strategies bend and twist in unexpected ways. Rathka stopped moving. His eyes narrowed. Chaos is not strength. Another officer hesitated. General, perhaps their chaos is not chaos to them. Perhaps it is a kind of freedom. Rathka stared at him, surprised by such a statement. The Vorak rarely questioned their own beliefs. He looked again at the holodisplay showing the human captain's face. That calm expression, that steady voice, it bothered him. Not because Ward showed arrogance, but because he showed understanding. Back aboard the Horizon's wake, Ward stood alone on the observation deck. He watched the gas cloud swirl around the 2 ships. The blue light reflected off his face, giving his expression a thoughtful glow. Mara joined him quietly. The Vorak requested an extended pause. That's unusual. They are confused, Ward said. They expected fear. They expected resistance. Instead, we showed them creativity. Mara folded her arms. Do you think this will push them toward peace? Ward shook his head. Not yet. The Vorak do not accept weakness, even in themselves. They will try again. They will try harder. And when they do, we must stay ahead. Mara looked out at the glowing clouds. Captain, when you told the General Good, did you know it would lead to all this? Ward smiled softly. I knew it would start something. I knew it would push them into a position they've never been in before. And when someone has 1,000,000 soldiers to manage, pushing them off their pattern just a little is enough to change everything. Mara let out a slow breath. The next stage will not be easy. No, Ward agreed. But humans grow stronger when the challenge grows. Far across the platform, General Rathka stood at the edge of the viewing deck of his flagship, staring into the same glowing clouds. His thoughts were unusually heavy. 1,000,000 soldiers. And yet one human captain? Unsettles everything, he murmured. He did not understand humans yet, but he was beginning to realize he needed to. And that was exactly what Captain Elias Ward wanted. The quiet after the negotiations did not last long. Both ships remained in the drifting blue clouds, their lights glowing faintly in the mist, but inside them, minds worked restlessly. The Vorak believed the break would allow them to regain control. The humans believed it was the moment they needed to understand the aliens even deeper. And Captain Elias Ward knew the next phase would not be about numbers or force, but about understanding how the Vorak thought. On the horizon's wake, Ward sat in a small strategy room with Mira, Theo, and Raffi. The table held holographic projections of Vorak behavior charts. Lines moved in perfect waves and repeating shapes. Everything about the Vorak was structured and predictable. Raffi rubbed his forehead. How can a species survive like this? No variation, no creativity. They do everything like they're following one rule book. Mira answered softly. Their entire culture is built on unity. They believe individual thinking divides strength. They trust only the structure, not themselves. Ward nodded. And that is why we can reach them not through force, but through showing them that predictability has limits. Theo adjusted a chart. Their reactions follow a cycle. Every time we do something unexpected, they pause, they rethink. That hesitation is where we take the lead. Ward leaned back in his chair. The Vorak do not understand why humans succeed without strict rules. They think our flexibility is chaos. But humans have a way of finding a path even in chaos. Small alarm beeped. Mara's voice came through the intercom. Captain Vorak have requested a new session. They want a direct competitive challenge. Ward stood calmly. Of course they do. Prepare the team. The Vorak flagship opened a channel. General Rathka appeared on the screen, standing tall and confident again, though his eyes showed a small trace of caution. Human Captain, your earlier performance surprised my officers. But we believe you succeeded by chance. Now we test you in a more controlled environment. Ward folded his arms. We accept. Rathka gestured, and a hologram appeared beside him. It showed a vast chamber filled with moving platforms, puzzle-like structures, and timed pathways. Our strategic trial chamber, the general said. Your team will face ours. Logic, coordination, planning, no weapons. Only mind and structure. Ward studied the display. The chamber looked complicated, but everything in it followed strict. Linear paths. We'll be there, Ward said calmly. A short time later, Ward and his 3 specialists entered the chamber through a neutral platform. The Vorak stood on the opposite side for tall soldiers trained for strategic coordination. They moved with perfect timing, every step identical. The chamber lights brightened. The platforms shifted. A deep voice announced the rules. Teams had to reach 3 objectives placed across the chamber. The platforms moved in repeating patterns. Some were fast, some slow. Some rotated, and some required timing. The Vorak immediately stepped forward, moving in the same formation they always used. They leaped onto the first set of platforms with perfect synchronization. Raffi whispered. Of course, they start with formation. Ward raised a hand. Watch. We learn before we move. They observed the path. Everything followed a repeating rhythm 3 seconds forward, 1 second pause, then backward. The rotating platforms spun at a constant speed. Theo spoke quietly. This chamber was built for them. Linear patterns, fixed cycles, no changes. They think like this. Ward stepped forward. Then we won't follow their path. The Vorak reached the midpoint quickly, but the human team had not even stepped onto the first platform. The Vorak officers watching from above murmured, thinking the humans were frozen by fear. Rathka smirked. Finally, Ward signaled his team. Now. They did not follow the simple forward path the Vorak used. Instead, Ward led them along a diagonal route that seemed unsafe. The platforms shifted at uneven times, but the team adapted step by step. When a platform paused unexpectedly, they adjusted. When one rotated too quickly, they waited. Their movements looked unstructured, but every step had intention. The Vurak paused mid-path, confused by the unpredictable human route. Their formation broke slightly, just enough to cause hesitation. Because they relied on unity, a single moment of doubt slowed the entire group. Ward and his team reached the first objective. The Vurak reached theirs only seconds later. The second phase began. This time, the chamber changed. Lights dimmed. New platforms rose. Others fell. The Vurak restarted their strict formation, but the new pattern did not match their training. Their movements became awkward. The human team, however, adapted immediately. They moved faster now, adjusting continually to the shifting environment. Mira spotted a platform that rose unexpectedly. "Captain," she said, pointing. "Shortcut." Ward smiled. "Take it." The Vurak officers watching from above were stunned. They move without a structure. How did they not fail? One of them whispered. They followed the situation. Rathka responded quietly. Ward's team reached the second objective before the Vurak, who struggled with the unpredictable shifts. The final phase was the hardest. The chamber activated its highest difficulty. Platforms changed direction without warning. Some flickered out of existence. Wind currents pushed against the teams. The Vurak forced themselves to maintain formation. But the attempt only slowed them more. Ward spoke calmly. "Break pattern. Move where it feels right." Theo laughed. "Feels right? That's a terrible instruction." It worked. The human team spread out slightly, but kept each other in sight. They made independent decisions, trusting instinct as much as analysis. Raffi timed jumps by feel. Myra read patterns the Vurak couldn't see because they were too focused on uniform movement. The Vurak tried to adjust, but they were too used to unity. Every shift caused misalignment. Ward's team reached the final objective first. The chamber ended. The lights brightened. The platforms settled. Ward looked across at the Vurak team. They were breathing heavily, not from exhaustion, but from frustration. General Rathka entered the chamber, his expression unreadable. He approached Ward slowly. "Humans move like water," the general said. "Always changing shape." Ward nodded. "And the Vurak move like stone. Strong but fixed." Rathka studied him quietly. "Stone endures. Endures. So does water," Ward replied. "But water also reshapes stone over time." There was a long silence. Rathka finally spoke to his officers. "Prepare the army for demonstration."
Out.
The Vurak officer stiffened. "General, an army demonstration?" "For the humans." "Yes," Rathka said firmly. "If they respect adaptation, they should witness discipline." Ward and his team returned to the Horizon's wake. Mara met them at the entrance. "How did it go?" Ward simply said, "They learned something about us. Now they want us to learn something about them." Hours later, the Horizon's wake floated above the Vurak flagship. The alien ship opened massive bay doors, revealing endless rows of soldiers, armor gleaming, lines perfect, movements unified. Ward stood on the bridge, watching the million soldiers assemble. The display was extraordinary. It was beauty through order. Mara whispered, "A million soldiers. It's almost unreal." Ward nodded. "This is their pride, their identity. They want us to see it because they cannot understand how we function without it." The Vurak soldiers performed a synchronized maneuver. Every movement was flawless. Every sound echoed like one voice. Theo stepped beside the captain. "It's impressive. But it's also predictable," Ward smiled. "Yes, and that predictability is our window." Rathka opened a communication channel. His voice filled the bridge. "Human captain, you have seen our army. 1,000,000 soldiers united. Do you still believe adaptability is stronger than discipline?" Ward answered calmly. "Yes." The general narrowed his eyes. "Explain." Ward stepped forward. "Because discipline builds strength, but adaptability builds possibility. Humans think differently from one another. We challenge each other, question each other, improve each other. We don't move as one Because we don't need to. Each human mind is a soldier. The general fell silent. Ward continued. Your army is a single unit. Ours is millions of unique thinkers. That is why we survive challenges others cannot. Rathka looked down at his own soldiers. The unity he had always believed was the greatest strength suddenly felt. Limited. The channel closed. Ward turned away from the screen. The next phase will change everything, Mara spoke softly. Do you think the general is beginning to understand us? Ward looked out into the blue mist. He's beginning to see something he has never seen before. And once he sees it, he cannot unsee it. The horizon's wake drifted quietly, but something had shifted between the two sides. The Vorak had shown their greatest strength, the humans had shown something greater, and both sides knew the story was far from over. The battle lines in space were no longer quiet. The human fleet had fully activated its formation, and every ship now moved with precise discipline. The alien armada, massive and confident, drifted forward like a dark cloud spreading across the void. In the center of that vast force, General Korvash watched from his flagship, expecting fear or hesitation from the humans. But he saw nothing like that. Instead, the human ships held their ground with strange calmness. Captain Ryland stood at the front control deck of Horizon's Spear, the flagship of the human fleet. His crew moved quickly, every member focused and ready. The ship hummed with power, charging its reactors and preparing its weapons. Even as the enemy numbers grew on the tactical screen, Ryland's face did not change. He watched silently, studying every movement of the alien army. Commander Mira stepped closer. She had known Ryland for years, trained beside him, fought battles with him, and survived impossible missions. She could read his thoughts without him speaking. But today, something about him felt different. He was calm to calm, like he already knew the outcome. Sir, Mira said softly, they're adjusting formation. The general is preparing a full forward assault.
Elon nodded.
Good. Mira felt a chill. Every time he said that word, something dangerous followed. The alien battle drums echoed through space. Their ships lit up with red energy lines, preparing to unleash a storm of plasma fire. Their engines roared with a sound that could be felt more than heard. On the alien flagship, General Korvash lifted his claws and shouted an order in his deep voice, sending his soldiers roaring in unison. Their pride, their numbers, their confidence, all of it was on display. Begin the march, Korvash declared. Crush these humans and break their stubborn courage. Thousands of alien vessels surged forward as one. A wall of metal. A wave of destruction. The first shots blazed across space. At that moment, Captain Ryland finally spoke. Bring online Project Aegis. The room went silent. Admiral Hayes, who appeared on the hologram from the secondary fleet, stared with wide eyes. Ryland, Aegis is still experimental. Ryland's voice remained steady. So were humans once. No one argued after that. Beneath the hull of Horizon's Spear, a deep mechanical rumble began. A faint blue glow spread outward, crawling across the surface of the ship like living light. The glow expanded, strengthening, thickening, turning into a powerful shield that shimmered like a small star. When the alien shots hit, they burst like sparks against a mountain. The shield didn't break or weaken. Instead, it grew brighter. General Korvash's eyes widened. Impossible. Human shields cannot endure such force, but they could now. Ryland watched the display without blinking. All ships hold formation. Let them exhaust themselves. The alien army continued to fire. Their blasts shook space, lighting up the battlefield with angry red. But the human fleet remained untouched behind the glowing barrier. Commander Mira took a step forward. Sir, our shield output is rising. It's feeding on the energy being used against us. Ryland nodded again. Exactly as designed. The crew exchanged shocked looks. For years, humans fought with shields that broke easily. A long-standing weakness. But now they had something new. Something that changed everything. On the alien flagship, confusion spread through the ranks. "General," one of Corvash's officers said in a nervous tone. "Our shots are doing nothing," Corvash snarled. "Increase power. Double the artillery. I want those shields broken. More fire? More explosions. More wasted energy?" And still the human fleet stood strong. Rylan lifted one hand slowly. "Now, give them a response." The human fleet unleashed a wave of blue-white beams. Each shot was targeted, precise, deadly. Alien ships burst apart in flashes of fire and debris. The front line collapsed almost instantly. The aliens, for the first time, hesitated. Captain Ryland's voice cut through the battlefield noise. "Advance." The human ships moved like blades sliding forward. Their formation tightened, their weapons synchronized. Every attack was more accurate than the last. They didn't waste shots. They didn't fire blindly. They struck only where it mattered. General Corvash felt something unfamiliar. Fear. He watched as one of his heavy cruisers exploded, then another. His million-strong army, the force he was so proud of, began to crack. His soldiers shouted in panic. Their ranks broke formation. Their certainty crumbled. Corvash slammed a clawed hand on the control panel. Why are they stronger than before? No one had an answer, but Captain Ryland's crew knew. Humans had been preparing, quietly, carefully, for years. Every defeat, every loss, every moment of weakness had been fuel for their growth. They studied their enemies. They analyzed every mistake. They kept improving. This time they were ready. Ryland watched the alien fleet fall into chaos. Push them back. Don't give them space to recover. Horizon's spear fired its main cannon, tearing a massive hole straight through the heart of the alien formation. The shockwave forced their ships backward, scattering them. Commander Mira's voice was calm but firm. "Sir, enemy communication channels show rising panic." Ryland's eyes narrowed. "Good. Let them understand." Another wave of human shots tore across the battlefield. Alien ships exploded like stars bursting. The entire front line dissolved. Corvash's second-in-command rushed to his side. "General, we cannot maintain formation. The humans are cutting through us." Corvash stared at the screen. His pride, his confidence both shattered. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. But it was. The humans advanced without slowing. Their fleet moved in perfect coordination. Like one living creature made of steel and fire, Ryland finally stood from his command chair. His voice echoed with quiet force. "Let the general see what a human good truly means." The next barrage was the strongest yet. Alien ships burst apart one after another, creating trails of smoke and metal drifting into space. The alien armada, so mighty in number, began to shrink. General Corvash's voice shook with rage. "Pull back. Regroup. I want all units to fall into defensive posture." But the humans didn't allow it. Ryland pointed forward. "Target their retreat path. Cut it off." In seconds, human ships had blocked the alien escape route. The enemy was surrounded. Commander Mira breathed out slowly. "They're trapped." Ryland said nothing. He simply watched. Corvash felt his chest tighten. He had never been trapped before. Never cornered. The idea that humans, a species he once considered weak, had forced him into this position, filled him with fury and disbelief. Ryland gave one final order. Begin the end. The human fleet unleashed a storm. Every cannon roared. Every beam struck true. Alien ships fell in rapid succession until only a scattered few remained. When the firing stopped, the battlefield was silent. Only the human fleet stood strong. Glowing beneath the light of their new shield, Corvash trembled, unable to process what he had witnessed, and Ryland, calm as ever, whispered the words the general feared most. This was only the beginning. The battlefield was quiet after the storm. Pieces of alien ships drifted through space like broken shadows, glowing faintly in the darkness. The human fleet remained steady, engines humming softly as they reformed their lines. Even after the massive victory, there was no celebration. Everyone knew the war was far from over. Captain Ryland stood in the center of Horizon Spear's command deck, watching the holographic map slowly shift as new data arrived. Around him, the crew worked in silence, their faces showing exhaustion mixed with something deeper. Determination, Commander. Mira approached with a small datapad in her hand. Her steps were slow, heavy. Sir, we've scanned the remaining alien forces. Less than 5% survived the battle. Ryland gave a quiet nod. And their flagship. Still intact, Mira replied. General Corvash hasn't retreated. Ryland expected that. Corvash was proud, stubborn, and obsessed with victory. A commander like him would neither flee nor surrender. He would fight until the end, or until he believed there was no hope left. Ryland turned toward the front window. Far away, the alien flagship floated with a dim glow, its shields crippled, its weapons damaged, but not destroyed. It looked like a wounded beast refusing to fall. He's waiting, Ryland said. Mira frowned. For what? For me? Soft silence settled over the crew. Admiral Hayes appeared again on the large holographic screen. His face carried pride, worry, and curiosity. Captain Ryland, the Council is requesting your status. They want to know if we should finish off the alien flagship immediately. Ryland folded his hands behind his back. Not yet. Hayes raised a brow. Not yet. Ryland, that ship is still dangerous. But it's no longer a threat, Ryland replied calmly. It's a message. Hayes studied him carefully. You're planning something. Ryland didn't deny it. Prepare a direct channel to the alien flagship. The crew obeyed instantly. Screens lit up. Signals aligned. The air felt heavier. After a few seconds, the alien general's image appeared, bruised, furious, but still proud. Corvash's armor was scorched, his posture weakened, but his eyes burned with defiance. Human, Corvash growled, his voice rough and shaking. You have struck a blow, but you have not broken me. Ryland stared at him with calm eyes. Your army is almost gone. Corvash's jaw clenched. Numbers do not define victory. Perhaps not, Ryland replied. But understanding your enemy does. Corvash's chest rose and fell sharply. You think you understand us? You think you know war better than those who were forged in it? Ryland did not raise his voice. You fought believing your million soldiers would overwhelm us. You assumed numbers meant everything. But you never tried to understand how humans fight. Corvash growled low. But there was something else gnawed out. Ryland continued. You looked down at us because we were fewer. But humans do not break when they are outnumbered. We become stronger. We adapt. We learn. And we fight with everything we have. The deck was silent. Not even a breath could be heard. Every crew member watched, knowing this moment mattered more than any weapon. Corvash leaned forward, his voice cracking slightly. And what do you want from me now, human captain? A surrender? Ryland shook his head. No, I want understanding. Corvash blinked slowly, confused. Understanding? You led 1,000,000 soldiers here, Ryland said. You expected us to kneel. But instead you saw something else. You saw what humans do when pushed to the edge. Corvash's claws tightened. His pride battled with the truth he had witnessed. Ryland spoke again. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them humanity is not prey. Tell them charging at us with 1,000,000 soldiers is not enough. Corvash's eyes shook. He understood what Ryland was offering. A chance to live. A chance to warn others. A chance to avoid future bloodshed. Ryland finished softly. Let the galaxy know what good means to humans. Corvash's breathing became heavy. His mind raced. His pride fought against logic. But the truth was clear. If the humans wanted him dead, he would already be gone. Finally, he lowered his head. Human Captain, Corvash said slowly. I will carry your message. The screen went dark. Mira stepped forward. Sir, you're letting him go? Ryland nodded. He is no threat now, but he is useful. Hayes's voice came over the speakers. The council may question this decision. Ryland looked at the hologram calmly. Then I will explain it to them. The war won't end with destruction alone. We need fear and respect to spread, and Corvash will spread it faster than any message we send. Hayes slowly smiled. Then may the galaxy hear him clearly. Transmission ended. The human fleet watched as the alien flagship slowly turned away. Its engines flickered with weak light, pushing the damaged vessel into the shadows of space. It was a broken ship, but it carried a warning that would echo across the stars. Myra stood beside Rylan, her voice soft. "Do you think he'll tell the truth?" Rylan's eyes stayed on the distant ship. "He will, because the truth is all he has left." The crew slowly relaxed. The tension faded. The battle was over, but Rylan wasn't done. He turned to the controls. "Prepare a report for Earth. Let them know humanity has survived another test." The ship's engines brightened as Horizon's spears slowly turned toward home. As the fleet began its journey back, Commander Mira watched the stars ahead. They seemed brighter now, as if the galaxy itself acknowledged the victory. Rylan walked past her, stopping only for a moment. "Mira," he said quietly. She looked at him. "This war isn't over. Others will come," Myra nodded. "Then we'll be ready." Rylan gave the faintest smile. "Yes, because humans always learn." The fleet accelerated, leaving behind the ruins of the greatest battle humanity had ever fought, and across the galaxy. Rumors began to spread. Rumors of a human captain who faced 1,000,000 soldiers and said only one word: good.